Hey there, thanks for joining me today. This is Laura Lynn with KeepInkingUp.com. I'm an independent demonstrator for Stampin' Up in San Antonio, Texas. And today I want to talk to you about our stitched rectangle dies. I love these dies, and I wanted to share some tips and tricks on using these. There are 13 different rectangle dies in this set, and I want to share how you can triple the number of shapes that you can make using these dies. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using my Big Shot because that's the die cutting machine that I happen to own, but you can use these dies in any die cutting machine. You'll just need to change up the sandwich a little bit. And I'm going to be using the magnetic platform today. That's just my choice of preference when using these particular dies, and you'll see why I make that decision as we go along. So what I'm going to do first is show the basic use of these dies to create layers for your projects. So I'm going to put my cardstock on a slight angle and then follow that up with the rectangle die. Now I'm putting it on a slight angle just to make it easier for me, because if you put if you run your die with the edge straight through towards your die cutting machine rollers, this creates like a speed bump, and it's just a little more difficult for you. You can do it, it won't damage your machine, but it'll like make a clicking noise and be a little more difficult to run through. So I like to slightly angle the rectangle before I run it through. So I'm going to run that through the die cutting machine. And when it's all done, you'll see that you have this lovely layer to use on any of your projects with this nice stitching detail. That stitching just adds a nice little touch to all of your projects, and it just really it makes a big impact. So anyway, the first way that I want to show you how you can double the use of each one of the rectangles in the die set is to make this layer now smaller. Let's say you want to make it into a square. Now I'm just going to eyeball it. You can certainly measure it if you would like to, but I'm going to eyeball that. Looks approximately like a square there. And I know you can't see it, but I'm just kind of feeling for the die to rest into those stitching. And it feels like it's kind of locked in place. That looks like it's about a square. Again, I'm going to put it on an angle on my platform and run that through. And now when I take this off, I've got a small rectangle piece and an approximate square piece, and everything's all lined up on the stitching because I lined it up like that. So right there, you've already doubled the number of shapes that you can cut with these particular dies. So next, I'm going to show you how you can make them a little bit longer or bigger. And I tend to do this with the smaller rectangle because I want to use this, maybe I want to make a long rectangle for a sentiment strip. I've done that in the past. So I'm going to again put my cardstock on an angle, and I'm going to place this rectangle here in the corner. And now this time I don't want to cut the whole thing at first because I want to make it longer. So I'm going to place my cutting plate not quite to the edge, not covering this edge of the die. I'm only covering, so only this part is going to cut. And it's okay that it's on an angle. That's not going to make any difference, and you'll see that in the next step. So I'm going to run this through the Big Shot. If I can hold on to it here. Okay. So now I'm going to show you that it did not cut all the way through. It just cut part of it, and it's okay that it's on that angle. That's quite fine. So now again, we're going to feel for the little stitching part of the die to lock into place on the previous part. I'm going to put this again on an angle, and this time I'm going to do the same thing. I'm only going to cover part of the die, not this part, because if I cover this part, I'm going to cut off this part of the die I've already cut, and we don't want that. So I'm going to place that in there. So there is a little bit of thinking involved in this particular process, but it's very doable. So So now you can tell when I take this off, using this die, I've made a longer rectangle, better for sentiments. So that is another way you can use these rectangles. So we have, by making a square and by making a longer rectangle, we've now tripled the number of shapes that we can make using these 13 dies. Another thing that I like to do with these dies is make frames, and you can combine any set of any combination of dies that you want. Let's use this big one, and we'll use another one in here. You can use any ones that you want. I'm trying to make it approximately, I'm just eyeballing it, making it equal. So now when I run this through, I will have a couple of different pieces. I will have a frame that I can use on a project. I also have a layer that I can use on a project. So that's another great way to use these. This is an example of, I just used different combination of the dies as well. Oh, I didn't use that one. I don't remember which ones I used. It looks like I used this one and that one 3 times. So I created a different kind of a frame. This would be kind of cute to make as a shaker, having 3 different windows for shaker bits. So anyway, you can use these rectangle dies in a bunch of different combinations, and if you just do a little bit of thinking, you can create bigger and smaller shapes using all of these rectangle dies. So anyway, I hope you found this video helpful on how to extend the use of these wonderful stitched rectangle dies. If you have any questions, please let me know. You'll find a link to these dies in the description box below. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.